Okay. So, welcome to the closing keynote. Thank you for staying up late. But of course, who's going to the movie after this? Yeah. So we'll have popcorn in the room. And I've been told it's a long movie, so but should be good. So who had fun this week already at Devox? Let me hear it. Who's going to come back next year? I'll tell you one secret. Don't tell your friends, don't tell your colleagues about Devox, because otherwise we're going to be sold out in less than a second, right? So just keep it a secret. What I can share with you is that next year's Devox will be in October from the 7th till the 11th. So that's the week that you can block your agenda for. That's when we'll have Devox 21 edition. Somebody told me, oh, Stefan, you've missed an opportunity because Devox with the 2 X's, that's the 20th edition. We should have done something with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, didn't think about that.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was a good idea, actually. So, it's really my pleasure to introduce the next closing keynote speakers. I mean, Sander and Kim. I know Sander already for a very long time. We tried to actually get you both at Devox, I think, a couple of years ago, and then the agendas didn't match, really. And I've already seen the closing keynote already, I think, 3 times at 3 other Devoxes. So it's really my pleasure to have them here now, finally in Belgium. And Sander and Kim, have a great one.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, we didn't do anything yet. So, thank you for all staying up so late. It's really interesting to have a closing keynote at 7 in the evening, right? That's like, it's cool. So I hope to keep everybody awake for the next 45, 50, 60, 70 minutes. Well, basically until the movie. So we're going to talk about flow. And let's start off with some nice history, right? So we all need a little history. So where's the history? There's the history, right? A short history of methodologies. So who of you is born in the 80s? Now you're probably quite, are you old when you're born in the 80s? I don't know. Not yet, right? Not yet. In the 70s. Now the good people, in the 60s. Cool. You don't get that at a JavaScript conference, right? They don't have that. Only me, basically. But so anyway, let's start off with something that most of you then will know probably, like waterfall. Right? You all know, you have had waterfall in school, right? You're supposed to have that, right? So the original waterfall idea comes from this white paper. It is called Managing the Development of Large Software Systems. It was written by a guy called Winston Royce. And he worked at Lockheed as an engineer, or an engineer manager actually, and he came up with this white paper. He wrote this in 1970. Now, in this white paper, there's this very interesting picture which you all know, right? You do know this, right? And the young people are like, what is this, right? Now, this is the original waterfall picture. And it basically describes a model where you do everything once, right? You write down some requirements, you do some analysis, then you do some design. People actually did that back then. Then you write some code, you test it, and you put it into operations. Done! It's pretty cool, right? Except when this lasts for like 3 to 5 years, and project lasted that long, it's pretty tough to do this, actually, as it appeared. And the interesting thing is, most methodologies in the 1970s came from this particular picture. Why? Well, because they didn't read the white paper really well. Because the white paper actually says much more than this. So I'll show you the next picture in the white paper, right? This is this one. This picture says, well, basically, if you're at a particular point and you don't like what you're doing, or you get some new requirements and new ideas, whatever, you should always be able to go back. Whoa. But that wasn't, people didn't count for that in the 1970s, and you're very quiet, and you're like, what, can you actually do that? Yes, you can, right? But that is a very different approach. Now, the nice thing is, he says, well, basically, I hope, oh, yeah, does it work? Hopefully, the iterative interaction between the various phases is confined to successive steps. So hopefully, you only have to go back one step, right? You're testing, something goes wrong, you can go back into coding, and you can go forward again. If you're unlucky, you go back 2, 3 steps, and you have to do some more analysis. You have to figure out what the customer really, really wants, because usually, well, they're not very much aware of that. And there's more in the white paper, because he also says, note that it is simply the entire process done in miniature to a time scale that is relatively small with respect to the overall effort. He's actually saying you should probably do this in small slices. Now, where did we hear that before, right? Or basically after it. Instead of being the father of waterfall, he should actually have been the great-great-father of Agile, right? And that is kind of weird because this was 1970, so we did it wrong for like 30 years. We spent tons of money on this, a lot of money. Actually, and the only reason that it's called waterfall is because he couldn't fit in the text editor that he had in 1970 all the 7 steps in a line, because otherwise it will just be linear development. Now it's waterfall, right? Doesn't make any sense, actually. And then came Agile. So what's with Agile? So it's quite interesting that Stefan and I were both doing a talk at, you're here. Stefan and I were both doing a talk in 2001 at the very first seminar on Agile in Brussels. It was in Brussels, right? And then, well, it grew from there, basically. We didn't invent it, but it came along. Now, a lot of people at that point in time, they were like, Agile, what is Agile? Well, Agile basically means, you know what, we'll just do no more planning, no more documentation. These days you can, of course, generate that, but we'll just write code and then complain afterwards. That is what a lot of people figure out was Agile. And then came Scrum. Do you like Scrum? Dare to say yes. No, so this is Scrum, right? And Scrum said, well, we could do iterations, or we call it sprints, and we do some meetings and some ceremonies, and we celebrate. Lots of good stuff, right? And then came the industry, and the consultants, and the vendors, and everything in there, right? And then a lot of people turned away from Agile, like Dave Thomas, for instance, who was one of the signees of the original manifesto. He says somewhere, and he says, well, unfortunately, I think time has proven me right. The word Agile has been subverted to the point where it's effectively meaningless, and what passes for an Agile community seems to be largely an arena for consultants and vendors to hawk services and products. No, isn't that nice? Yes, if you're a consultancy, yes, it is, right? So, and then you see stuff like this, right? I used to go to Agile conference, I stopped doing that basically, but, and you see, actually, make sure you don't miss the Agile elephant versus the waterfall elephant in the lobby. What? Or, during this session, we're going to discuss the happiness index of products. What is the happiness index of? I have no idea what it is actually, right? It wasn't in the Agile Manifesto or anywhere else, or add ready for celebration for the done column in your Kanban board. I literally have no idea what that is. Now, our good friend Alan, he got it right? He says, more and more, I'm coming to see the term Agile as both unnecessary and self-defeating. Agile has become to mean do part of Scrum badly and use Jira. Okay, well, a lot of Jira fans here, right? So, and then the question is, what do we do now, right? So, what we do now is we'll introduce ourselves. Good idea?
Yeah.
Good idea, right? So, this is me. I'm Sander. I'm the father of 3. I speak a little bit, I write a little bit, I travel a bit, and I'm currently the CTO for this nice e-commerce company called iBoot. You might have heard of it. We're active in Belgium as well. And the interesting thing is, Stefan posted something, I had to put it in there, it wasn't in our original slides. And this is the Java Polis, the predecessor of DevOps, right? The agenda in 2003, which was the 2nd edition, I think. And I was actually there. That's quite cool, right? I was still working for consultancy though, but so sorry for that.
Cool. Yeah, so my turn. I'm Kim. I also like a bit of speaking. We often do that together. I have 2 kids and also the stepmother of his. So in total 5. I work at Schubert Phyllis. We're a company that do mission critical outsourcing for like large companies like trains, airplanes, transport, postage, things like this. What's really nice, what I really like about it is that we do things the way you actually want to. We have this 100% mindset, and we say we build them in such a way that they can never fail. And that means that the only way to achieve that is if you make the engineers the boss, so we have no managers. It's a great company to work.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So time to introduce flow, because after waterfall, after agile, we need something else, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why is because in a consultancy where we work and where you worked, we found this very interesting correlation. Actually, if you make your projects last as long as you possibly can, you make way more money. So that's good. So instead of trying to make it faster, and instead of trying to improve it, we went totally the other way. And we thought, what if we try to make it dure as long as we possibly can? And the nice thing is there is so much inspiration in all the methodologies that are out there.
Oh, yes.
So we just had to mix and match. We were drunk when we made up this talk. True.
Really?
But we didn't have to invent anything, which was a good thing in that state. So what's the first thing that we need? Of course, naming, because that's the hardest problem to solve. So we had to start there. Well, we thought about a bunch of names. Of course, we need some Japanese words like Kaizen, Kanban, Obeya, Origami, the art of ripping off post-its. We could also make it end with crossy, such as holacracy, sociocracy, idiocracy, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, we need something continuous with a D, like continuous disappointment or disagreement. Maybe we want something with hashtag no, like no ops, no projects, no estimates, or no SQL, no testing, no code. It's a thing. And of course, we need something like serverless or pointless, maybe. Something as a service, SaaS, IaaS, platform as a service, testing as a service, anything as a service, methodology as a service, why not? But in the end, we just went for flow because it really fits nice on laptop stickers. And that was the main crucial requirement, so we went for that. So if you're starting with flow, you get this. When you advance, you can go with the flow. This is for front-end developers. This is like when you have to feel agile, feel the flow, maybe even surrender to the flow. And in the end, we have this sticker on our laptops.
This is the highest level, right? But that's very expensive. So the question is, what do we put in there? Now, we thought about that for a while, and I don't remember I was drunk when we built this stuff.
Oh yeah, it was at 3 o'clock and we had it the next day.
Really? Oh, sounds like all of my projects, basically. So, so the first thing we'll keep in is the thing called sprints. And now you're all wondering, why do they keep in sprints? Sprints are nice, right? Well, sort of nice, but they can go sort of out of bend, basically. So I'll show you an example. This is a project, or actually this is a burn-down chart. You know what a burn-down chart is, right? I hope so. This is, well, they never go down, of course, but this is a burn-down chart of a project here in Belgium, actually. And what they did as well, they estimated the work. So this is, well, estimated all the work, like 950 somethings, I don't know what, but, and then it goes down. Of course, the ideal line is like this, and by the end of the sprint, you have some work left. And we have this once, you're like, okay, that can happen, right? Nobody cares. And then, well, the second sprint, these are, by the way, actual diagrams from an actual project, real life story. And the second sprint, and the project manager, yes, there was a project manager, this was 2013, so there still were project managers. Is anybody here project manager? See, they're all gone.
No. I saw one hand.
What? Where?
You're very brave. You earned an extra beer.
Yeah. Well, wait, really? Anyway, so the second sprint, it went way off again. And now the project manager, he started to worry. They had a fixed deadline, of course. And then the third sprint came in, and well, they had a lot of work. And then he started to complain. He was like, you stupid developers, you don't know how to finish the work, or you cannot estimate. I said, well, both, actually. Estimation sucks, right? It's like terrible. So then the fourth sprint, and the fifth sprint, and the sixth sprint, each of them were failing. And they called them red sprints. And what happened after the fourth sprint is, he decided, so consultancies, right? He decided to get some extra resources. Yep. What he meant was people from India. 300. I'm not joking, this is really true. So 300 people. And what happened is, well, they didn't know what it was about. The documentation was in Dutch and in French, and, well, that was pretty much hard to read for them, right? It gets even worse when you're in Finland, and documentation is in Finnish. Nobody can read that anyway, except the Hungarians, but that's a different story. And then it completely failed. Right? And the problem with sprints is that they are mini projects. They're actually like mini waterfall projects, and they usually fail. So, yes, we put them in, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Next thing we need is gamification. Because autonomy is a really nasty thing. It's one of those principles in the Agile Manifesto. But actually, when you give autonomy, it's quite hard to control people. We want autonomy, but on a leash. Basically, well, they don't get to hire people. They don't get to fire people, of course.
Well, they is the resources, right?
Yes,
the
resources in the team, because they, of course, cannot. You all cannot judge if your peer is writing good code or is nice to collaborate with. So who are you to judge, right? You don't get to do appraisals. Same applies. Of course, you don't get to decide what you work on, so we need a product owner for that, because, well, what do you know about the product? And of course, you don't get to spend any money. So yes, you get to be autonomous, but well, basically, we will decide what's on the backlog. We will make sure that we decide who is on what team. We will make sure that we decide what tools you are using when you have meetings.
How many?
You cannot decline meetings. That's really forbidden. But you do get to decorate your workspace.
Yes.
So that's great. Who doesn't want a workspace that looks like this, right? This is Zappos. It's a true example. And this is another example. This is me in a ball pit at a great e-commerce company in the Netherlands, doing a job interview for a senior management position. So
Did you take it? Did you take it?
no, I was rejected.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe I was uncomfy or something.
I suppose so. Yeah. That's like
Yeah. So,
terrible. Oh, so all get all these balls in, right? Go to the IKEA, get them from the ball pit, and take them home. Bring them with you. So what else? So well, we need to talk about teams and roles and resources, of course. If you look into the let's say if you look into Scrum, Scrum has over the years had different opinions on how big your team should be. So it started off, I think, with 7 plus or minus 2. Then they went to 6 plus or minus 3. And in the most recent version of the Scrum Guide, they have something like less than 10 or something, right? It's like
2 pizza rule.
yeah, that's Jeff Bezos, but that's, yeah, okay, well, small teams, right? And then you get into enterprise agile frameworks. They exist. And if you work for a large company, bank, for instance, a government agency, you know all these, right? So let's look at disciplined agile. I think it has disappeared mostly, but just to give you an idea of how many roles you could actually put in a methodology. And these are only people outside of the teams, right? So it can go worse. There are actually consultancies making up their own frameworks, and I never know whether this is actually serious or not, but I'm assuming it is. I'm not going to tell you which consultancy this was. But you can figure it out, right? This is just horrible, right? So, and then there's this other framework called SAFE. And SAFE is nice, right? Because it basically gets bigger every time. And the interesting thing is always to find the customer. So we do our annual quiz. I'll show you the picture of SAFE, and then you can try to figure out where the customer is. So, yes, you found it probably. It's the person on the right here. It's the poor person being hit by the train. If ever, right? Because these trains usually don't go that fast. But before you know it and you realize that there's a new version out there, so they're now at version 6. Somebody told me yesterday, I wonder how they actually can make it more complicated than version 5. And then I'll say, well, wait until version 7. So where's the customer now? I don't know, actually. Oh, it is not anymore. There's no customer anymore. It's customer-centric. That means we don't actually talk to the customer. We just talk about the customer. And yeah. So yeah, terrible, right? It's like basically, if you want to do stuff, this is like trying to squish square things into round holes. And well, that doesn't really work. So we should add all of these roles and stuff in there, right? I think. And they just keep adding on stuff. And there's like, even the author of Team Topologies now says, well, yeah, well, they try to push it in, but it's basically like to push blue strawberries into a plain muffin and call it a blueberry muffin. I like that quote, actually. And then there's these people, the agile coaches. You know about agile coaches, right? Do you have an agile coach in your company? No, nobody dares to speak out, right?
Yeah.
Wow, still, right?
Close your ears for this chapter.
Yeah, just close your, sorry. And I think by now, most agile coaches, and that goes for Scrum Masters as well, they will be out of a job within no time. I mean, the next 5 to 10 years, right? Because all this stuff will vanish because it will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and nobody knows how to do that. Anyway, so then we have these agile coaches. So what do, agile coaches? They go to agile coach camps. I'm not sure what they do otherwise than this, but this is it. And you get things like this. So I really enjoyed the first Obeya Knowledge Network meetup in Amsterdam last Friday. What is that? And they say, well, the mission apply Obeya as an instrument for a better world, develop a more responsive and effective leadership. Not sure what it is. We're actually going to have dinner with one of the persons in the picture I now see tomorrow. But anyway, so that doesn't really matter. And then they organize like conferences that are called Play, and then they have techniques that you don't even want to know. Look at this, right? Day 1 was packed with learning moments, games and exercises to help understand the essence of flow. Well, they have flow as well. And looking forward to day 2, where we will be zooming more into agile metrics. They don't exist. And the marriage between Scrum and Kanban. I don't know. And they use techniques like this, like liberating structures. And I don't know what it is, but I still have no idea what this is. This is like the celebrity interview and shift and share and design storyboards. And the only thing I can think of is like, well, you know what? Where's my code? I'm a developer, right? I write code every day. Anyway.
Yeah, take some water. I'll
Yeah,
take
I
over. So next chapter is, of course, we need something called DevOps. Because
would you be
we
without
can have
DevOps?
really lengthy discussions about the order of the words. So there's this whole consideration. Maybe we should call it Ops Dev, because Ops is actually front-loading Ops considerations into your dev practice. And you can even go beyond. You can call it SecDev, SecOps, It really exists.
Well, if you're in security, that's
So-
good, right?
Basically saying security is really important to begin with. It's also important while you're building, and it's also important at the end. So yeah, that's a good name. But then we're thinking, what about the rest? What about the analysts? What about the testers and the project managers? They have no place in this abbreviation. And then we went back to the source. And actually, Patrick Dubois, a Belgian guy, he invented this. So yes, Belgian people do invent stuff.
Yes,
And
without
what
Googling.
actually happened was that he thought, well, I think we need a new way of collaboration, because we see the devs speeding up. They don't think ahead 2 years anymore like we did in Waterfall. They actually think ahead 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks in advance, they come to us and they say, hey, I need a new VM or a new CPU. And then it's really hard to deliver if you don't change. So it was a collaboration mindset. And because he wanted to change this collaboration in operations, he organized a conference, wanted to call it System Administration Conference. But there was
I
too
would go
long
there, actually.
to fit on stickers. Literally, there was the consideration. So he found DevOps Days. So yeah, we're going to keep that because we like the lengthy discussions while not achieving any collaboration. So our collaboration mindset will be community, development, operations, analysts, and security. In short, com DevOps anal sex. And then at DevOps Athens, somebody did us the favor to say, yeah, but then I don't want to be a back-end developer anymore. And we thought, yeah, we understand that. So we need back-end developers, so let's just call it resources REST, because managers call it anyway.
Yeah, they do, right? So then we need, of course, we need some meetings. Who doesn't like me? Do you like meetings? Yay! I hate meetings, actually. It's like terrible things. I don't know why they invented them. But anyway, let's look at meetings, right? So, yeah, well, every agile approach has its own meetings, right? Most of them have things like stand-ups. Now, if you're like me, so I've been in stand-ups for over 20 years already. Every day of my life, 20 years. I probably spend more time in stand-up meetings than I spend with you, right?
Yeah.
So it's like really interesting stuff. And well, of course, you keep up to date with what other people are doing. That's really nice. But in the end, I feel like there's like boring, right? And I try to keep them shorter, and people are trying to tell all the details that they're working on. Like, oh, I finished this ticket, then I talked to that person, and I talked to that person, and I'm like, it's my own team, right? So I shouldn't complain. But
I
so
hear some
yes,
recognition in the corner.
really? Is
Yeah.
my team in here? No, they're not, right? Anyway, so yeah, stand-ups meetings should be there because, well, you can spend at least half an hour every day just sitting around talking to people. Actually, what I see happening is with my own team, I do it myself too, is that meanwhile we're in the Zoom call, or actually we're in the Slack call today, and I do keep on typing, actually, and we actually all do that. That makes the stand-up meeting even longer.
Nobody's listening anyway.
Nobody's listening anymore. So and then there's this other meeting that I really like, the retrospective. Do you like retrospectives? Do you do them every 2 weeks? Like, take half the day, right? They're very interesting meetings, and the nice thing is, you can prepare for the stand-up meetings because usually you do a demo to the customer, right? Or to the stakeholders, which means you can spend at least 3 days preparing the demo, which by then, of course, will fail during the retrospective, but yeah, that's what it is, right? And I've been in so many of these things that I start calling them repeat-rospectives, which I think is a much better phrase for it. And the thing is with all these meetings, it stops us developers from getting into flow, right? once you're in flow, you don't want to get out, because this is when we are in the zone. It's when Kim talks to me and I don't respond. And that's not because, well, I don't want it. I just don't hear it.
It's
like
also
I'm
a really
writing code.
easy excuse.
It is. And I like it really a lot. By the way, you can see what's wrong in this picture, right? He's working in light mode, and you don't do that, right? That's like undone. So, there's been some research about really getting into flow as a developer. And the thing is, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes for us to get back into flow. So that means once people are in flow, you interrupt them with a meeting. Because, well, that saves you like 50 minutes on the whole team usually. So the thing we need to do is, every time people just tend to get into flow, you run into their room, and then you say, we need to get in a meeting, we need to talk about this really right now. And then everybody looks up, done. Flow's gone. That's it, right? So break up with meetings randomly throughout the day. You usually do that by a high-placed person, like the CEO of the company. In my company, he's also 2 meters 5, which means if he jumps into the room, it's kind of impressive. And you do that throughout the week, of course, and on short notice, just like managers usually do. And then you do random topics, doesn't matter what, just to break the flow anyway, right? And yeah, and they last at least an hour with the whole team, on Teams, of course, which usually doesn't work, and we spend like 50 minutes. Can you hear me? And then everybody's like, and stuff like that. Have you never done that? You've done these meetings, right? So yeah. So we call them flow meetings, and they're everywhere. The problem is, you cannot just let these people run themselves, right? That's just terrible, because they won't know what to do. So we have to give them all these tasks every day. The problem with self-organization, by the way, is that for a lot of people, it's really out of their comfort zone. It is like, with my current team, I had developers who were in the team, and I just came in and said, you decide what to do. And they were like, what do you mean we decide what to do? What do you want us to do? And I'm like, well, you know best, it's your work. And they're like, yeah, but...
what do you want us to decide what to do?
Do you want us to work on the ERP system, or would you want us to work on the new TypeScript thingy? And I'm like, well, you decide. It took them like months to get to the point that they really could decide themselves. So all this fuzziness about having autonomy, it needs to go in your approaches, right, every day. And the problem is, I cannot teach that to people, because autonomy is like, you can say, well, now you have all the rights to decide for yourself, and then they're like, what? But we started doing things like, but this is wrong, right? So don't do this, right? Don't do mob programming or work in very small teams. That is not what you do in Flow.
No, definitely, because it's too effective, right? So next thing we need is flow in the enterprise, because that is where the real money is. The question often asked by large companies is, well, can we actually have every team decide on its own backlog and adopt its own practices, or do we need to sync up? Usually the second one is the answer they give, unfortunate for you. So maybe you need some kind of large-scale process like SAFe. Of course, a simple way to do that is just copy Spotify.
Oh, yeah.
Because, well, they already did this, and as a company, you can just adopt that. The one problem is that the Spotify model, that was invented in a time that Spotify was growing 8x every year. So imagine if you're a team of around 9 people, and you were there last year, the rest wasn't. So in that case, you need a lot of guidance. So what they did is they had a ratio of 1 to 2 of managers versus developers. So that means that if your company copies Spotify and you're maybe a bank and you're not growing 8x every year, because I know no bank that does that, then you have a lot of managers. And actually that does not really increase your productivity.
Really?
So, and it's even worse, because then you copy Spotify, and what you usually see happening is that all these roles, like a chapter lead and a tribe lead and a squad lead, they are all applied in the team, but the old managers are all kept, all layers of them. So that means that your ratio is even worse than 1 to 2. It's a 1-to-1 ratio if you adopt the Spotify model. This is the reason that Spotify stopped doing the Spotify model. Their growth changed. So maybe you shouldn't adopt something that doesn't really fit your context.
But you do need to do one thing, right? So when you have all these managers sitting there, you stop calling them managers, right? We were talking to a company 2 weeks ago, and they said, yeah, we have a lot of leaders. And I'm like, what do you mean leaders? Yeah. They used to be managers. Now they're leaders. It sounds a lot better, right? They still do the same thing. I don't know what they do, but it's the same thing. They now called leaders, right?
Yeah,
Very effective.
Leads even. They were called tech leads. That was
They were
quite
called
confusing.
leads. Yes, it was
Because,
even worse.
we're going to do this talk, and they said, we have 118 tech leads. So we thought, oh, that's nice, a lot of technical people. No.
they're just
Oh,
leads.
yeah.
We didn't know what to do with our managers, and it's like, put them on
Yeah.
the release train, right?
You have to stop them somewhere. So yes, we definitely want to keep that. We're gonna introduce a big flow framework, BFF in short.
Yeah.
We're gonna start with version 3.0 because it has to really sound innovative. We're gonna add complexity in every release, just like Safe, so that you can do a recertification with every layer, which will cost €1,000 each. And of course, we will all copy Spotify, like everybody, and also copy Basecamp, like startups, so that we can also have discussions about leaving public cloud, which is awesome.
Yes. Or abandoning TypeScript.
Yeah.
As they do now.
Imagine if you were in the a laggard moving to public cloud. Now you're a front runner because you're still on-prem.
Oh, yeah.
I have one more slide. Yeah, so they tried to research which is more effective, having no methodology at all, or one of the big ones like Less and Safe. And research says, well, they're all equally bad. So just choose. Doesn't matter.
I'll have the gray one. Can I have the gray one?
None. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I like that. None. Who invented that? It's
God.
So let's have some tooling, right? So, well, to be quite honest, you don't need a lot of tooling when you do flow, right? You need boards because everybody has these boards, right? You have them everywhere. So the better you get at doing flow, the more of these boards you have. And I think we decided that we need at least 20 columns to the boards, and they need to be so confusing that the clients have no idea what they're talking about. But this is a picture, by the way, I took of a project in France. So I'm not sure if it's worse than in other countries, but I really couldn't read what's on the board. I have no idea what they were doing.
I think it's worse because now the post-its are written in French.
Oh, yeah. Well, now we have AI that can translate all our post-its, right? So, you need 20 columns at least. And usually if you do enterprise flow, you need to put them in a separate room, which is then called the board room, of course. And there's one that I really, really like. You need to have a burn chart. And you're like, wait, you mean a burn down chart, right? And I said, no, I mean a burn chart. Because a burn chart actually shows this. This is an actual chart from an actual project. The amount of work that we actually did, it actually grew. So it went from here to here, and we did a lot of work. But in the meantime, the number of story points that remained also grew. As a result, we didn't get anywhere near the end result. It took years and years before they reached it. Did they actually reach it?
No.
They didn't, right?
They stopped it.
Oh, sad. After how many years? 5, I hope, right?
No, 3.
Oh, that's way too less money earned, I suppose. So, and then we need, next to that, we need Jira, of course, because, well, who doesn't like Jira? Jira, basically, well, it's mandatory. You need to have Jira. If you don't have Jira, there's no way of confusing people, right? Because Jira stands for agile. If you use Jira, you're agile. That's it. Done. Solved. I actually heard people say this in reality, right? And in Jira, you can have Scrum boards, but you can also have Kanban boards, which is really weird. They look quite the same, actually, and there's a slight difference, and I never got the difference. So it's quite confusing, so you're required to have them both. By the way...
You either work in sprints or you don't.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, doesn't everybody work in sprints?
No.
Oh, nice. And then you put all your estimates in there, of course, t-shirt sized or whatever sizing you do, doesn't really matter. Doesn't actually really matter. You could all count them as one. That works just as well. It's the law of large numbers. And then all your worked hours, so your leaders, I think leaders, right? They can actually figure out how many hours on average it takes you to finish your story. Or a ticket, actually. Everything is a ticket. I don't like working on tickets, but they're all called tickets now these days. That's terrible, right? So, and then the next step is, of course, this is advanced stuff. You put all your requirements into Jira as well. We have separate tools for requirements, but no, let's just put them all in Jira with lengthy text and pictures and everyone, and nobody knows where to find stuff anymore. So that's really good. And then there's another thing we need to stop. Is communication, right? That's just terrible. We don't want people to communicate, so we put them in open floor plans. I like open floor plans. They're noisy. Actually, their finance department in my current client, they actually now want to put a wall between them and us. And then on the other hand, on the other side, they have the marketing department who make a lot of noise and they play with balls and whatever they do. So they want to put a wall there too. And then we get back into like cubicles per department, which is really cool. I hope we can do that. So, well, of course, open floor plans are ruining your productivity, right? They're quite noisy. Nobody knows what to do. There's lots of people talking and running around, and a lot of people have trouble focusing when they're in open floor plans. So we give them noise-canceling headphones. They are mandatory in Flow. We also tried with VR. It didn't work. They couldn't see the IDs anymore, so yeah, we stopped doing that. But we did add Slack. Just to be sure, we could use Slack. And the nice thing is, well, you don't want to disrupt people, so you stop people talking to each other, even when they're sitting next to each other. And the only thing they do is they send each other Slack messages. And then somebody else who sits next to you or across you, they'll just send you a message back. Isn't that really cool? It avoids all face-to-face communication. I really like that. And occasionally, when you're good, you can do pair slacking. That means 2 people on a keyboard type 1 Slack message. Isn't that cool? I really like that. And of course, we need to have Slack channels for everything and everything and everything, right?
Yeah, you can learn new shortcuts. So
Oh, yeah. You
Shift
figured
Escape
them out, right?
makes all your messages read.
Oh, yeah, you
in
figured
Slack.
that out yesterday,
Yeah,
right? That was really
so
cool.
happy.
Remember that one, Shift Escape. I need to remember
Shift
that.
Escape. This is the one thing you can take from this conference. It's my gift to you. So yeah, and of course we also need a manifesto.
Yes.
So a manifesto usually is a published verbal declaration of the intensive motives and views of the issuer. So normally it really describes the intent of the issuer. So what do you want to achieve? What is your vision of the world and the whole why behind it? That means that most manifestos have pages and pages that you can read through to thoroughly understand it. And then there is, of course, the Agile Manifesto, which actually, as a gift to the world, decreased a manifesto to 4 lines. Which is much easier. So, of course, then you can issue the Agile Software Development Manifesto, but you can also make the Software Craftsman Manifesto or the HR Agile Manifesto.
Oh, I like this one.
And this is, of course, the response, the Programming Motherfucker Manifesto.
That's my favorite.
So, done being humiliated by methodologies and trying to seek some respect again as a developer. So, yes, definitely we want this. Also because it's easy, we just have to write 4 lines of code. So let's do that. And we have the Flow Manifest. So what we want is extensive certification over hands-on experience. We want copying methodologies over thinking for yourself. Tool-driven confusion over building working software, because that makes our projects last longer. Endless meetings over focused flow. Mandatory gamification over authentic autonomy. And of course, just to be clear about it, while we ignore the things on the right, we do the things on the left. And of course, in the trend of these days, we call it the microfest, because it's only 4 lines.
Yeah. So the only thing missing now is, I think, certification. Because you all need to be certified in something, right? And especially if you are in the Agile space, there's lots of certifications and lots of people make lots of money. So we thought, wait, if we actually want to make money, we should do this too. So we started our own certification game. Of course we do this. Am I in the wrong slide? No, I'm in the right slide. So what did I miss? I missed something, right? Oh,
No,
right.
no. You hidden the slide.
I didn't see the slide. Yay, what do I do with my life? Now, I missed the slide, damn. And it's like, okay, so we need certification as well, right? So basically, the good news is you can all become a Flow certified resource. Or a certified Flow resource, that doesn't really matter a lot, actually. So what we learn in the courses that we give on Flow, well, first of all, we teach you how to rip off Post-it notes. Because, well, that's important. There actually is a technique for this, by the way. I'll teach you afterwards. With a lot of beer, of course. And then you learn to move items on a Jira board, because otherwise, well, you cannot be in a Flow team, of course. And then you need to learn how to decorate your workspace. Isn't that fun, right? And then we thought about, what do we do with these courses, right? Normally, in like Scrum and other approaches, you have these 2-day courses. You pay tons of money for it, of course. But yeah, we were like, we're a bit too lazy for that to organize a 2-day course, right? So we just think, well, this 1 hour or even 45 minutes keynote should be sufficient to actually do this. So the good news is, we're now going to try and get you certified. So, yeah, that's really nice, right? So we have like 3 questions for you. And if you answer them all right, well, you can get the certification, right?
Yes, definitely. So let's start. What roles do we have in Flow? So is it manager, project manager, and product owner? We are all one team.
Ew.
Lots and lots, except for the testers, of
Yes,
course.
yes.
Or resources.
Resources.
Write them down.
Write down your answer, right? So question 2 is, why do we have retrospectives in Flow? Well, answer A is to interrupt the daily flow of our resources. Answer B is to endlessly discuss why the resources in our project should work harder. I've been in these meetings, and to make sure we spend 2 days preparing demos, which then, of course, answer D, fail, and we can see that together with our customers.
So hang in there, just one question to go. We have certification in Flow because we want well-trained resources in our projects, or because it makes our methodology look really important. Maybe it's because it's so complicated, you just really need lots and lots of training. Maybe even watch this talk 2 times. Anybody is a revisiting visitor here?
Yeah, Stefan.
Oh, yes. Now you know it. You're a Flow expert. You get the surrender to the Flow sticker. We're gonna make it. We're gonna print it for you. Or is it because we want to make money?
Yeah. So think carefully about your answers. I have some good news for you. You all passed the exam. All the answers are correct. So congratulations to you all. Just to keep your cameras ready, because we are now showing the certificate. You can make a picture of it so you can print it and put it on your wall, put your own autograph on it, done, right? So that's it. So by the way, there's one catch, that is there is an annual continuation fee of 200 euros. So I think we talk about what we really believe, right? I think.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So the first part wasn't what we really believe. Just to be sure.
This is me, right? I do the first one. Oh, yeah. Cool.
It's orange.
Yeah, it's orange. Yeah, we used to have the slides in the colors of what we were wearing, but I forgot to change them, and black slides sound so terrible, right? So it's you should have worn a red dress or something, or a green one.
Next
so
time.
Anyway, software is built by people, right? It's still not AI, partly, but we do the work, right? We do the creative work. So it's us that is actually important in projects, because we build the software. It's not the tools, it's not the leads, whatever they're called these days, but we do it. So we actually matter.
Yeah, and we believe that every organization or team should create and evolve the methodology that really fits them best. So Scrum can be an excellent starting point, but only for the first maybe few months, to get used to the patterns of Agile and to maybe think about, well, in my context, what do I need? What do I want to keep and how to improve it? So Scrum doesn't say you have to do Scrum.
Yeah, they actually say you shouldn't over the long run. No, it's actually true. So, and then the thing is, I think that face-to-face communication and personal communication is actually still key, right? I love talking to the people on my team, work with them every day. That does mean occasionally we sit in the office, occasionally we don't, but I love the face-to-face communication. It is so much more effective than all this slacking and emailing and whatever we do these days, right? So I love getting back to that particular point.
Yeah. And trust and personal safety rule. So when you're in a project and you keep talking about red sprints and asking people to work harder, and in all kinds of methodologies, making people shut up because only the product owner can put things on the backlog, it's every practice that makes people feel unsafe, unwelcome. It's why people leave the industry. So find a way that actually give everybody a voice in your team instead of just shutting them down.
Yes. Yep. True. And, well, it is actually true. Writing software actually requires that we can actually focus. So I was writing some code earlier this afternoon, and I was actually in a room like this, and then I decided, no, I need to go somewhere quiet, because otherwise I cannot solve this particular problem. And we do need to be allowed to get to that focus. That also means that the whole 9 to 5 thing doesn't really work in our industry, because our minds don't just operate from 9 to 5, they operate throughout the day, throughout the night. I have lots of ideas when I'm driving home in my car or on my bicycle driving here, for instance. So we need to stimulate that.
Yeah. And continuous learning is essential. So many teams are in what we call stress mode. It's where you're just running from one deadline to the other, and you already know that you're going to make none of them. And that means that what you end up with is that everybody focuses on the part that they already know very well, which is in their comfort zone, because that's the optimal setup for speed. But in the long run, it's really hurtful. So if that's what you're doing, sprint by sprint by sprint, that means that nobody ever learns a new thing, and that people get bored, and that people don't actually upskill. So you have to make time for learning. You have to actually make sure that it's guarded, that people can spend at least 1 day per week on learning.
Yeah, at least. And well, here's another thing, right? I think that, so I've tried to make organizations and teams more self-organizing and autonomous over the years. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And the most effective teams that I've worked with, that I've been in actually, are the teams that actually could make their decisions themselves. Because every decision that needs to go up like 3-4 levels in the hierarchy of your organization ends up with a person who has no idea what you're talking about and then comes down with an arbitrary decision and you have to go back up again and down again. That doesn't really work. So if you can be much more autonomous, you can go faster even. And the work becomes, of course, much more enjoyable.
Yeah, and organizations should really be as flat as possible with as little hierarchy as possible. So yes, leadership can actually bring value because there are some people who need the overview, who need to make sure that it all fits together. And that is something that I still believe in. But fitting it all together doesn't mean that you're micromanaging the team and that you're making decisions that you're not an expert on. So any leader should first of all learn how to trust their team before they even become a leader.
Yes. And then my favorite thing is, it's because I'm old, right? And I think I love working with people and looking at their code and see how I can improve it. And the nice thing is, I see that my own role as a developer is changing from stamping out all the code to looking with other people at their code and see what happens and how we can improve on that. And that is something that people would experience. So the people who raised their hands when they were born in the 60s and the 70s, that's what we're going to do, right? That's what we start doing instead of typing all this code out, because we have a lot of people who can do it, a lot of AI can do that too, but I think the experience is so important. And we still play a valid role in the industry, I think.
Yeah, and last thing we believe is Agile should actually reduce complexity, because if it adds complexity, then why implement it? I think it was Albert Einstein who said any idiot can bring more... Einstein, the one with the hair. And any idiot can bring more complexity, but it takes a true expert to actually reduce complexity. So that's actually a quest.
Yeah, good quest. And the last thing is, and the most important thing I think is, never, ever, ever forget to have fun, because we are in the best industry out there. There's nothing better than be a software developer. I wouldn't know what to do else, actually. But so that's it. Thank you all for being here. I hope you will enjoy the movie afterwards, and I hope to see you back next time. Oh.